Your brain won't switch off because it thinks it's protecting you. The noise isn't random. It's a system running a job, and the more you try to force silence, the more urgent the loop feels. Because to your brain, stop thinking doesn't sound like peace. It sounds like, this is dangerous. Here's what most people miss, and it matters. The thing that quiets rumination isn't stronger control over thoughts. It's giving your brain a clear done signal, so it can stand down. Rumination feels like thinking, but it's closer to a looped alarm. Something gets flagged as unfinished, uncertain, socially risky, or emotionally unresolved, and your mind keeps reopening the same file, not because it loves suffering, but because it's scanning for a way to prevent harm. Sometimes the harm is obvious. A mistake at work, a tense conversation, a deadline you can't ignore. Sometimes it's vague, and that's worse. A strange heaviness in your chest. A comment that felt slightly off, the sense that you should be farther along by now. So your brain tries to do what it's good at. It tries to solve, it replays, it edits, it predicts, it rehearses. But repetition doesn't create certainty. It creates familiarity with fear. That's why you can come up with a perfectly reasonable answer and still not feel done. Because rumination isn't powered by logic, it's powered by a feeling. Not safe yet. A common trap is fighting the content, arguing with the thought, fact-checking it, explaining it to yourself again, rebuilding the timeline, rewriting the conversation in your head. And then, 2 minutes later, it's back. Because the engine isn't asking, is this true? It's asking, are we safe? Here's a pattern many people recognize. A 29-year-old female project manager lies down at night, and her brain starts running meetings that already happened. One comment from her boss loops. She crafts the perfect reply, imagines how it could have sounded, anticipates the next meeting, and right as she starts to settle, her body jolts with uneasy energy. Not panic, just a restless refusal to file the day away. She tells herself, stop thinking. Her brain hears, important problem, keep thinking. That's the first paradox. Trying to force the mind quiet often convinces it the thought is dangerous. Rumination sticks for a few predictable reasons. Your brain hates open tabs. If there's no clear ending, no decision, no action, no meaning, the tab stays active, and the brain leans toward negativity. Potential losses feel more urgent than potential gains. So anything that could cost belonging, stability, competence, respect, gets promoted to the top of the feed. There's also a simple reality most people overlook. Your body is not a passenger in this. If your nervous system is running hot, poor sleep, too much caffeine, constant stimulation, no recovery, chronic stress, your thoughts become louder, not because reality changed, but because your baseline state changed. In that state, neutral things feel loaded. A small, awkward moment feels like a crisis. A normal uncertainty feels like a warning. Most people respond to this by thinking harder, more analysis, more mental effort, more searching for the perfect answer. That backfires because it teaches your brain a rule. When I feel uncertain, I must think harder. So the engine learns to escalate. This isn't a one-time problem you solve. It's a loop you retrain. To retrain it, you need to understand what your brain is trying to accomplish. Rumination usually tries to do one of three jobs. It tries to predict and prevent. If I replay this enough, I won't make that mistake again. It tries to protect social standing. If I understand what they meant, I can avoid rejection. Or it tries to regulate emotion indirectly. Thinking can become a way to avoid feeling, words instead of sensation, analysis instead of contact. That last one matters, because if rumination is emotional avoidance, more thinking won't help. Here's a quick self-test. No big analysis, just notice what pulls you. When the loop starts, are you searching for certainty you can't get? Are you trying to rewrite the past to relieve shame? Or are you scanning the future to avoid a feeling you don't want to meet? Embarrassment, disappointment, grief. Don't answer with a story. Just notice the direction. That direction tells you what fuels the engine. Now, for the reframe that changes everything. Rumination isn't your brain being weak. It's your brain being responsible with the tools it has. It learned that thinking equals control. Being prepared equals safety. If you've ever been rewarded for being sharp, for catching problems early, for staying on top of things, your brain linked mental work with survival. That can make you high functioning, and it can make you trapped, because some problems are solvable and some are only livable. If you treat a livable problem like a solvable one, you ruminate. So the goal isn't deleting thoughts. The goal is changing your brain's criteria for done. Your mind stops looping when it believes one of these is true. The threat is resolved, a plan exists, or the emotion has been processed enough that it no longer needs constant monitoring. That gives a clean strategy. Instead of fighting the thought, satisfy the done signal. And this is the key insight that actually quiets the engine. Your brain stands down when it gets two cues at the same time, a body cue of safety and a behavioral cue of agency. Safety plus agency. If you only do agency, planning, lists, logic, without safety, your nervous system stays revved and the brain keeps checking. If you only do safety, breathing, calming down, without agency, your brain says, nice, but the problem is still open. Pair them, and the loop loses urgency. Here's the minimum viable version, 2 to 5 minutes. For the moment you catch the spiral, in bed, in the shower, at your desk, walking home. First, a 1-minute downshift, not heroic breathing, not forcing relaxation. Just make your exhale slightly longer than your inhale, again and again, like you're letting air out of a balloon slowly. Drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, loosen your hands. This is a physical instruction. No immediate threat. Second, externalize the loop, open a note, or grab paper and write one sentence. Not the whole story, just the file name. Worried I sounded incompetent in the meeting. Stuck on that text message. Fear I'm behind. One sentence. Third, stamp a next action. Your brain calms when it sees a handle. Write the smallest next action you can do within 24 hours. One email, one question, one calendar block, one request for clarification. If there is no direct action, if it's truly uncertain, write a containment action. Schedule 15 minutes tomorrow to think about this. That counts because it closes the tab for now. Then add one final line. Not solved yet. Handled for tonight. Or, not solved yet. Scheduled. That's it. It sounds simple. And that's why it works. Rumination thrives on ambiguity. This removes ambiguity. If the thought returns right away, you don't negotiate. You repeat the same process, gently, consistently, like training a nervous system that learned a loud habit. Here's something counterintuitive. Sometimes the best way to stop thinking isn't thinking less. It's thinking with a container. Rumination is uncontrolled thinking. The antidote is controlled thinking. That's the standard version. 12 to 20 minutes, ideally earlier in the day, not at midnight. Start with a quick state check. Not to judge yourself, to interpret the volume. Ask, am I tired? Hungry? Overstimulated? Caffeinated? Socially depleted? If yes, your thoughts will feel more convincing. Not more true, just louder. Next, give the loop 2 minutes of respect, but keep it adult and plain. I'm anxious about how I'm perceived. I'm afraid that decision will close doors. I'm carrying a lot of pressure. Then ask one question that separates rumination from problem solving. What outcome am I trying to achieve by thinking about this? If the outcome is actionable, shift into planning. If the outcome is impossible, rewinding time, reading minds, guaranteeing the future, you're not problem solving. You're seeking emotional certainty, different path, actionable path, write a plan in 3 short lines. What I can do, when I'll do it, what good enough looks like. That last line matters because perfection keeps tabs open. Unanswerable path, process the emotion, briefly, directly. 90 seconds, not a deep dive, not a dramatic story. Just feel the body signal. Where is it? Chest, throat, stomach, back of the neck. Label it gently. Tight, hot, heavy, buzzing. And remind yourself this is a feeling, not a prophecy. Stay with it like you'd stay with a wave. You don't have to love it. You just don't have to run from it. Then prove safety with a small action. Stand up, get a glass of water, stretch your hips, step outside for 2 minutes, put your phone in another room, and return. Tiny movements matter because the brain learns through behavior. Moving while uncertain teaches a different rule. We can live even without perfect answers. Now add one tool that's quietly powerful: the worry appointment. Pick a daily slot, 10 to 15 minutes, not right before sleep. That's when your brain is allowed to bring worries. When rumination shows up outside that slot, you say, "Not now." You're scheduled. Then you write the one-sentence file name and return to what you were doing. At first, your mind will protest. That protest is old conditioning. With consistency, the engine loses urgency because it no longer needs to hijack the entire day. Now the upgrade version for high performers, fast minds, responsible minds, minds that run hot. Upgrade 1, create an ending to your day. Most modern days don't end, they blur. A 6-minute shutdown ritual changes that. Write 3 lines. What's done? What's pending? The first next step for the most important pending item. Then one final sentence. I'm allowed to stop. Your brain doesn't need perfection. It needs closure cues. Upgrade 2, train uncertainty tolerance on purpose. Once a day, deliberately choose good enough on something small. Send the email without rereading it 6 times. Choose the restaurant without scanning every review. Make the decision without seeking reassurance. These are tiny exposures. They teach your brain, we survive imperfect certainty. Over time, the compulsion to rehearse decreases. Upgrade 3, build attention flexibility. Rumination is attention stuck to self-referential loops. The antidote is not distraction, it's steering. Twice a day, do 2 minutes of single-task focus. Pick one anchor, sound, breath, feet on the ground. Each time the mind drifts, return. No punishment. Just reps. Not to become a different person. To become someone who can redirect without a fight. Upgrade 4. Protect sleep boundaries. Rumination loves nighttime because fatigue weakens your braking system. Make the last hour boring and predictable. Lower light, lower stimulation, avoid emotionally activating content. And if the loop starts in bed, get up for 3 minutes. Sit somewhere else. Write the file name and next action. Then return. That breaks the association between bed and mental marathons. There's also a social upgrade that matters. Rumination often grows when everything stays trapped in your head. Sometimes the fastest way to quiet the loop is one clean sentence to a safe person. I'm spiraling about this. Can I say it out loud once? Then stop. One pass, not 10. External processing, not endless rehearsal. A final vignette to land this. A 22-year-old male engineering student replays every interaction after class, convinced he sounded stupid. He isn't socially incompetent. He's exhausted, overstimulated, and perfectionistic. His shift isn't positive affirmations. It's a system. A 5-minute shutdown after campus. A 10-minute worry appointment in the afternoon. One daily good enough exposure. Raising his hand once without over-preparing. Within a month, the thoughts still arrive, but they don't stick. The engine loses traction because his brain starts trusting the system. That's the real win. Not never having the thought, but not being recruited by it. One more counterintuitive truth. Rumination often spikes when you're growing. When you're changing identity, new job, new standards, new self-respect, your brain increases monitoring. Not because something is wrong, because something matters. So the goal isn't shaming yourself for thinking, it's guiding the thinking into containers and closing loops with safety and agency. Tonight, when the engine starts, don't debate it. 1 minute downshift, longer exhales, 1 sentence file name, 1 next action stamp, or a scheduled time, one closing line, handled for tonight. Tomorrow, do one worry appointment. Actionable becomes a small plan with good enough. Unanswerable becomes 90 seconds of feeling, labeling, returning. This week, add one shutdown ritual and one daily good enough exposure. And protect sleep like it's part of your mental health toolkit. Because it is. If anxiety feels overwhelming or sleep is consistently disrupted, consider professional support. Your brain doesn't run the rumination engine because it's weak. It runs it because it's loyal to your safety, your belonging, your goals, your future. The upgrade is teaching that loyal brain a better method than endless review. Thoughts can show up, and you still get to choose what happens next. Leave a comment with the main category your mind loops on most: work, social, past mistakes, or the future. And the next script will be a targeted protocol for that exact loop. The old advice was built for a world where you picked one lane, stayed in it, and slowly became the person who does that. But the future doesn't reward single-lane certainty the way it used to. It rewards people who can move across domains without losing credibility. People who can learn fast, translate between groups, and build things that don't fit inside one job title.